Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from the College of Social Sciences and Humanities, Dean Uta Poiger.
Good evening. It's my great pleasure to welcome colleagues from a broad set of institutions and from across the country to the opening forum of our Higher Education Summit on the liberal arts imperative in the digital age. The summit has been convened by Northeastern University in partnership with the Association of American Colleges and Universities. What are our goals tonight and tomorrow? Together we want to explore this proposition. The liberal arts matter more than ever in the 21st century, and they matter for everyone. As vast amounts of information are available, as more and more processes are automated, and as we continue to see strife domestically and internationally, the critical and creative capacities that the liberal arts teach are at a premium. Critical reading and writing, ethical reasoning, responsible contextualization and evaluation, all these are key capacities that the liberal arts foster. When employers tell us that they need people who communicate effectively, who work in teams, people who are responding appropriately to ambiguity and uncertainty, they are looking for employees with liberal arts capacities. We live in a world with complex challenges, from social inequalities to climate change to other natural and man-made disasters. We need to build and sustain resilient communities and resilient networks and adjust modes of governance. In such a world, liberal arts capacities are important no matter what the major. The engineer needs to engage with ethics, the computer scientist with questions of privacy. And the liberal arts is also about having the freedom to not always know exactly what the end result of one's inquiries is going to be, and to have that freedom not just reserved for a few. As we assert the value of the liberal arts and sciences for majors and non-majors alike, we also need to adjust our work in the liberal arts. We need to adjust our programs, our teaching and research, and the way we link with institutions outside of academia. In this context, we have asked leaders in higher education to join us and to articulate how they translate their vision of the liberal arts into concrete institutional initiatives. Initiatives designed to be transformative within higher education, and initiatives that change the relationships between higher education and businesses, schools, government, and the nonprofit sector. At Northeastern, for example, we work with a concept coined by our president, Joseph Aoun. The concept is the experiential liberal arts. The experiential liberal arts for us means three things in particular. It means integrating experiential learning with our teaching and research in the liberal arts. This means supporting students in applying their capacities in different contexts with real constraints and real consequences for decisions. Students gain such experiences on cooperative education, for example, at the MFA across the street from where we are today, or at the United Nations in Geneva. They also gain them in study abroad programs or in faculty research collaborations, to name other examples. Second, the experiential liberal arts means integrating liberal arts capacities into the paths of all our majors. We do this especially through the learning experiences of our general education curriculum that we call New Path. And third, the experiential liberal arts at Northeastern mean integrating liberal arts teaching and research with new proficiencies such as machine learning or data visualization. In this two-day summit, we are very eager to discuss with our colleagues throughout North America how we affirm the value of the liberal arts, how we transform the liberal arts in new educational initiatives in the digital age, and how we measure the impact of the liberal arts in today's world. We are very pleased to partner in this effort with the AAC&U. The Association of American Colleges and Universities has over 1,300, really nearly 1,400 member institutions, and is the nation's premier association committed to extending the values of a liberal education to all students. Its explicit mission is to foster quality and public standing of a liberal education. We are honored indeed that the American the Association of American Colleges and Universities president, Lynn Pasquerella, has agreed to open the summit together with Northeastern's president, Joseph Aoun. As president of Mount Holyoke College, Lynn Pasquerella fostered the integration of experiential learning and the liberal arts. Throughout her career, and as AAC&U president, Lynn Pasquerella has been deeply committed to ensuring access for everyone to the promise of a liberal education, and she has committed the AAC&U to a mission of inclusive excellence. She has called on institutions of higher education, and here I quote her, to engage in an honest assessment of our effectiveness and undertake a collaborative exchange of best practices. This is very much the spirit of our summit. A liberal education needs to provide what employers value most, but also what sets students up for a life of learning, fulfillment, and impact. A liberal arts education needs to provide, in Lynn Pasquerella's words, the ability to apply knowledge in real-world settings, to engage in ethical decision-making, and to work in teams on solving unscripted problems with people whose views differ from one's own. In other words, we need to affirm the values of the liberal arts and sciences, and we also need to transform the liberal arts and sciences for a globalizing world in the digital age. President Pasquerella will now give remarks, and President Aoun will then join her on the stage for questions and answers. Please join me in welcoming President Pasquerella for her thoughts on the liberal arts imperative in the digital age.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here, and thanks to President Aoun for this extraordinary opportunity. The summer I graduated from high school, I managed to escape the factory work I had done alongside my mother the previous summer, only because I received funding under the Federal Comprehensive Employment and Training Act. At the time, CETA funds were reserved for high school students who were at risk of permanent unemployment due to extreme economic and social disadvantages. That fall, I continued working 35 hours a week under a CETA grant while attending a local community college that had just opened up in the small rural town in which I lived. I had decided to forego a full scholarship to my state's flagship university in order to stay home and be a caregiver to my mother, who had become chronically ill. 2 years later, I transferred to Mount Holyoke College, and within another 2 years was headed off to Brown to earn my PhD. When I graduated, I vowed that I would never forget the lessons that I learned in that transition from community college to the Seven Sisters and the Ivy League. Thus, throughout my career, I've tried to demonstrate a deep and abiding commitment to access to excellence regardless of socioeconomic background, to the centrality of liberal learning, and to political scientist Benjamin Barber's notion of colleges and universities as civic missions, where we not only educate people to be free, but we free them to be educable by serving as a visible force in the lives of the most disenfranchised members of society. Well, there's been a good deal of rhetoric regarding access to higher education as an essential symbol of our nation's commitment to educating for democracy. The fact is that many of our citizens have closed futures, and so in a very real sense are unfree. Indeed, I mentioned in a Washington Post article that was published this afternoon that the need to redress the growing economic segregation in higher education poses our most serious challenge. And to do so, we need to restore public trust in higher education. What I pointed out in that piece is that the ideal of higher education as a public good has all but been abandoned. This ideal, once inextricably linked to the American dream, has been sacrificed in favor of the notion of higher education as a solely private commodity. The narrow focus on earning power coinciding with demographic shifts in the number and diversity of college students has fueled the understanding of college as a purely private benefit rather than a good for all. Our colleges instead should be seen as a means of strengthening our democracy as well as bolstering our nation's economy. But to do so, we need to take seriously the concerns of the skeptics. When Marco Rubio says that we need more welders and less philosophers, we can mock his grammar, and we can, as we do, and we can drag out statistics countering his assertion that welders make more than philosophers. But we ignore his underlying message at our own peril. What he's really getting at is his belief that education is too expensive, it's too difficult to access, and it doesn't teach people 21st century skills. The reason his message resonates so deeply with so many people is that they are genuinely afraid that their children won't have the same opportunities that they have had. As we know, adolescence has now extended to the age of 34. There are more children between the ages of 18 and 34 living at home with their parents than any time since the Great Depression. As Jeff Selingo points out in his recent book, which prominently features Northeastern's president, there is life after college, but it takes some longer than others to fully launch. Like Selingo, I'm absolutely convinced that the best preparation that we can offer our students in a globally interdependent world where rapidly changing technology means rapid obsolescence is a liberal education. It prepares students to write and think and speak with precision, coherence, and clarity, to anticipate and respond to objections, to propose, construct, and evaluate arguments. But most importantly, it teaches the critical listening skills necessary to imagine what it's like to be in the shoes of another different from oneself, a skill more important than ever. But it also does something beyond what we might consider a public purpose of higher education. It teaches people to be adaptable and flexible in the face of change, in a world where the jobs of the future haven't yet been invented. It teaches people to be innovators in their own lives, something at the heart of a private purpose of higher education. Let me explain what I mean by a personal purpose of higher education. Among the courses I signed up for with the help of Pell Grants and Perkins loans during my first semester of college was an American literature class. There weren't many students in the class. Most enrolled in courses that more easily translated into better jobs, or any job at all. It was taught in the basement of a local church across the town from the administrative offices of the college, which were in trailers housed in a parking lot of a technical school. Despite the lack of a physical campus, there was a true sense of community that was created by embarking on a common endeavor. One evening, my literature professor arranged for us to take a trip to Hartford to see a performance of All the Way Home, a Pulitzer Prize-winning play by Tad Mosel. I had never attended a professional theater production before, and Hartford was a world away, known to me only as the place that my father traveled nightly to work as a welder on the third shift at Pratt & Whitney. I remember piling into the car with my classmates dressed in a blue velveteen jumpsuit. It was the 70s after all. And when the lights dimmed, I was transported. In the dark, perhaps especially in the dark, I felt a part of something important. Surrounded by classmates, I stared ahead at the stage and waited for what I could not yet see. After the play, our class went for Chinese food and talked. The performance had raised so many big questions about faith, grief, and trust. We discussed the last act, when a wife mourns her husband's unexpected death. "I hope he loved being," she said, recognizing the possibility that he may never have realized his own strength and potential. What that evening taught me, and why I remember it after all these years, is that we all have a right to experience being. We are each entitled to live in our strength. We each deserve opportunities to find our best and most authentic selves. Technology is a valuable tool, and some level of technological competence is essential for our graduates to thrive in today's world. But no matter how technologically proficient one may be, grappling with the most fundamental questions of human existence is a humanistic endeavor. As a medical ethicist, I'm acutely aware of the extent to which technological advancements precede thoughtful reflection about the ethical, legal, and social implications of the use of that technology. Here are two examples from different contexts. When I first began serving as a member of a medical ethics committee, the first case that we encountered was a case involving a retrospective analysis of a patient who had gone to her physician with aches and pains, and the doctor wrote in her record that she had multiple vague symptoms. They couldn't quite figure out what was wrong, though she had been seeing him for a series of months. The last visit he had with her, he had done an extensive set of tests and revealed that she had liver cancer. He talked to her about the diagnosis and the prognosis and asked whether she wanted a living will. She said she did. When the burdens of treatment outweighed the benefits, she didn't want extraordinary measures used to prolong her life. She said she was surprised by the diagnosis, but was convinced that this was the right course of action. And so a copy of the living will was placed in his office and in the emergency room. The next day, he received a call asking him to come to the emergency room because his patient was being transported by ambulance. She had swallowed a bottle of tranquilizers and she had cut through her wrists almost completely with a hatchet. The doctor agonized over what to do. He knew that if he attempted to resuscitate his patient, she likely had no good days ahead of her. Yet he also knew, in the state in which this occurred, that if he didn't act aggressively, he could be charged with assisted suicide, which was a felony. So he came to us after the case had been resolved, asking whether he had done the right thing. He decided he had no choice. He performed CPR, he stitched her up, he intubated her, and when she regained consciousness, she was furious. She tried ripping out the tubes. So he brought a psychiatric consult in, and she was determined competent to refuse treatment. She did so, and she died 6 hours later. He said, I took an oath to first do no harm, and yet I feel like I tortured this poor woman. I forced her to stay alive against her will. I was experiencing moral distress, he said. I felt constrained by the institutional and organizational cultures in which I was operating. Did I do the right thing? He was very well technologically trained. He was a brilliant physician, and yet none of that training could help him deal with this question of whether he had done the right thing. So here's a second example. For 5 years, I led a vertical research team to Kenya, where we were working on clean water solutions, sustainable agriculture, and entrepreneurship for women in the West Lake District near Lake Victoria. The communities with which we were working, the faculty, graduate students, undergraduate students, were engaged in community action planning. The communities were 33% HIV positive. They had a 69% poverty index. They were living on less than $1 a day. 80% of the families were polygamous, and they still practiced widow inheritance. So when a woman's husband died, she engaged in unprotected sex with a male relative in order to cleanse her of her dead husband's evil spirits. They didn't believe that the symptoms of AIDS were caused from HIV. They believed they were a result of chira, a thinning disease that's a consequence of violating taboos, including a refusal to engage in widow inheritance. Our students and the community members, along with the faculty, were able to come up with simple engineering solutions to deliver clean water. Most of the residents were dying not from AIDS, but from AIDS-related illnesses as a result of a lack of access to clean water. CDC Kenya was providing them with drugs, but they were dying from dysentery and diarrhea and other AIDS-related illnesses. So we used clay pot water filtration, we used sand filtration, we used moringa seeds as natural flocculants. But what we couldn't do immediately was to address the psychosocial issues necessary to encourage the women to take advantage of the technology that we provided. So here was a case where, again, we had the technology, but we needed to engage in a humanistic endeavor in order to make a difference. Students today need to be prepared, as you've heard, I've made the case, to engage in integrative thinking across disciplines, to work in teams with individuals who are different from themselves, to apply their thinking to real-world problems. We've spent too long relying on standardized tests, asking students to answer questions for which we already know the answers. What we need to do is present them with unscripted problems for which we desperately need the answers, and we need to provide them with the skills necessary to achieve those goals. By doing so, and only by doing so, will we be able to fulfill the full promise of American higher education. Thank you.